It's a ridiculous day in the world of Magic the Gathering. We have just been given a bunch of information about Duskmourn, and it's gonna be pure insanity. We're talking 3 mana for 10 power creatures. We're talking 3 mana for board wipe effects, and for good measure, why not throw in a second Meat Hook Massacre, even though they had to ban the first one?
Magic. History.
I'm an old wizard!
The Magic Historian.
My bones hurt. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another crazy installment of Mega Magic News. A bunch of information has dropped about Duskmourn, and it's pure insanity. The kind of insanity that makes me go all 80s, wearing sunglasses at night and also in the daytime. But not for this video, because genuinely it's actually pretty annoying. Now, Mark Rosewater just dropped the teaser list for Duskmourn, and it includes a whole wide range of information, some of which makes me curious, some of which is kind of whatever, and some of it is very concerning. So, in no particular order, let's start out at the beginning of what you can expect from Duskmourn. There will be a component of the set with a frame using technology first designed for an unset. That is a bit unwieldy the way it's worded, but what I think it's going to be is Duskmourn is going to have a room theme where you're going to have rooms that can be unlocked, so it's probably going to be some weird split crazy card tech that we've never seen before. So that could be interesting, or it could just be a side note on the actual interesting aspects of the whole room concept. We've got next on the list a tweak on an ability word that first appeared in the 3rd set of a block. When it comes to things like this, that doesn't really fire up my imagination. Just we took an ability that showed up in the 3rd set in a block and changed it a little. I mean, we keep seeing repeats of abilities, right? We saw Morph come back as Disguise, and how much of an impact did that make for Markov Manor? Not much. So that's a pretty one. After that, we got counters used in the set. +1/+1, -1/-1, finality, flying, lifelink, lore, loyalty, nest, possession, rev, stun, and time. So we already know rev from the chainsaw they've spoiled before. That one's no surprise. Possession counters are interesting. I presume that will be an ability to perhaps take control of a creature, or maybe a creature that gets bigger and beefier when it's possessed. Those are the 2 options for that. Nest counters are also an interesting concept. Who knows what kind of horrors are nested deep in Duskmourn and what that will do. But most of these, they're counters that we've seen before, right? After that, we've got the first ability word to reference second main phase. This is essentially Wizards changing up. Before they would say additional main phases, pre-combat, post-combat main phases. Now we're moving into the second main phase concept here with the ability word. Then we have one that's very curious to me, and that is a 10/1 creature for 3 blue mana, straight up. Now part of me goes, does this have to do with Dan? Because Dan is a Garbo 2 blue 4/1 creature from the earliest days of Magic that actually sprung an entire format up around it. And this does give me Dan vibes with the 1 toughness, but I think it's most likely going to be some kind of illusion, right? Because the house, if you haven't checked out the Duskmourn story, the house does use illusions and beasts that can use illusion magic. And speaking of the story, if you want to check out the first 5 installments, they're already up over on my lore channel, Fantasy Geographic. So you can go and check that out after this video. But ultimately, I feel like a 10/1 for 3 blue is probably going to have abilities like, oh look, I can't attack or block unless there's particular conditions met, or after I've attacked or blocked, sacrifice me, right? It screams, it's probably got something like Defender, so you can only use it as a blocker and it's most likely to get destroyed. It might even have the old illusion ability where if you target it at all, it also gets destroyed. I mean, it's obviously exciting to see a big fat 10 on a creature that costs only 3, but it is 3 of a specific color, and it is 3 blue. And blue is the color that's least primed to take advantage of big power creatures, right? So this one is genuinely interesting to me. It has the potential to be broken, but it probably won't be. Then we've got a variant on a mechanic that itself was a variant on another mechanic. Again, this falls into the, is it really going to be exciting? I mean, we had Morph that turned into Megamorph, which was just put a +1/+1 counter on it. And now they're going to go, it's another variant. It gives 2 +1/+1 counters. It's too vague without adding anything interesting into the mix. The next card could be totally busted. A modal 3-mana white mass removal spell, right? We've already seen things like Farewell and its ability to wipe out a ton of stuff being super desirable. And this is only for 3 white mana, which makes you wonder, is it going to be something along the lines of it can only exile certain casting costs, and those are the different modes? Like, you can exile all creatures that cost 2, or all artifacts that cost 3. Part of me goes, this could be complete junk. And another part of me goes, it could be bonkers nonsense. I mean, look at obviously things like Nadu and other cards that we've been talking about recently. When it comes to design and stuff, Wizards is literally shipping out cards without even testing them. So it could go either way with this. And obviously, they need to keep pushing the envelope with these kind of board wipes if they want to replace what people are already using. And Wizards of the Coast very much wants to do that, right? So this white removal spell is one of the ones that I have my eye on the most out of everything we're going to talk about. And there is one other thing we'll get into later as well, specifically, that are my 2 biggest watch lists. All right. After that, we've got a new ability word that cares about a card type and a new keyword action. Again, this is one of those ones where I go, okay. And then the creature tokens, we've got 1/1 white toy, 1/1 white glimmer, and glimmers are essentially embodiments of people's hope. They show up as like glowing golden figures. They're one of the few things in Duskmourn that you can actually trust. And certain characters don't have a glimmer for either they've lost all hope or perhaps they were never hopeful in the first place. So for example, the Wanderer has a golden dragon glimmer that helps her out in Duskmourn. But Nico does not have a glimmer, and it's uncertain whether it just hasn't appeared yet or whether Nico doesn't even have one, right? So the glimmers are pretty interesting. We've got 2/1 white insect, 3/1 white spirit, 4/4 white beast. That's an interesting one. We've got a blue token copy, an XX blue spirit, a 2/2 black horror, a 6/6 black demon. Summoning up big fat demons pretty much always feels good, right? I've loved that since the beginning of Magic, back with Lord of the Pit, where it's like, you're going to make a bad deal with the demon, and it's probably not going to turn out too great for you, right? So you've got a 1/1 red gremlin, a 1/1 red balloon, 99 red balloons, I guess, go by. I'm not 100% sure what that one's about. Anyways, 2/2 green spider, 1/1 black and green insect, which kind of makes you think of Grist, doesn't it? And a 0/0 green and blue fractal. And that pretty much has to be something tied into Zimone, right? Because the whole green-blue fractal stuff, it screams Strixhaven, and Zimone is the only Strixhaven individual we have in the story. Theoretically, it could be something else, but it strongly says to me it's going to be Zimone, right? Then we've got rules text that will show up on cards. Unlock a locked door. So understand, they only give us little fragments of what the cards will say. And this unlock a locked door is what made me think that whole unframed thing they were talking about will have a locked room and an unlocked room, because the whole concept of Duskmourn is it's a gigantic house that sprawls throughout the entire world. So it has every kind of room imaginable, the kind of rooms you'd find in houses, living rooms, stuff like that, but also entire forests, lakes. Everything that existed on the world of Duskmourn is now inside of the demon house. So this room theme is probably going to be a big deal. After that, we've got search your library for a demon card. That's always a winner, right? Being able to do some kind of ritual to summon the demon is fun. Then we've got where X is the number of creatures you control with power 2 or less. So this is obviously going to reward some kind of weenie strategy. It could be scry X, gain X life, whatever it is. That is most likely going to be a white aligned ability. After that, we've got exile any number of target instant sorcery and or Tamiyo Planeswalker cards from your graveyard. Tamiyo has a role in the Duskmourn story, kind of showing up unexpectedly. Nashi heads into Duskmourn looking for Tamiyo, right? And ultimately gets lost in the whole crazy house of horrors, and that leads the rest of our planeswalkers and heroes going in after Nashi. So Tamiyo is in there, and I'm actually really interested to see what the card that cares about instant sorceries and Tamiyos in your graveyard does. After that, we've got the same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. So it obviously must maybe apply some kind of creature, like all your creatures are considered horrors. And the same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. So any creature you have in the graveyard is also a horror, and when they're on the stack, they're also considered horrors. That's what this says to me, right? It could be something different, but that's most likely what it's going to be. After that, we've got you have no maximum hand size and don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. This must be some sort of creature, probably. I'm guessing maybe it's a glimmer because they give you hope and help you out. So it could be on a glimmer while you have it out. Your hand size can be gigantic, and you got that platinum angel effect where you can't lose the game from having 0 or less life. You can still lose the game from other reasons. Like if you can't draw cards, you can still lose, but that's an exciting little sentence. Tacking together no maximum hand size plus you can't lose the game also does illustrate like how crazy down the powerhouse line we're going with Wizards making cards that are more and more over the top. And that one has definite potential to be broken depending on what it's on, right? Being on an artifact or enchantment makes it stronger than if it's on a creature because creatures are easier to answer. But who knows? Maybe it'll be on an indestructible creature because why not, right? We're living in anything can happen times. Next up, after that, we've got whenever you cast an instant or sorcery that targets only a single creature you control, copy that spell. We've seen this ability a whole bunch of different times. Ultimately, it doesn't really fire up the imagination that much, but obviously it's going to be fantastic with stuff from Bloomborough because we got a bunch of those mice creatures and stuff who go, oh, did you target me? Boom, I get boosted up, right? So being able to copy it for all your dudes, play a boost spell on one guy, it hits all your guys, that is a desirable ability. Then we've got shards you control become copies of it until the beginning of the next end step. I presume this is an ability specifically on Nico, although it could be a card referencing Nico. Nico's magic is shard magic that specifically traps entities within it. And actually, I guess I don't want to spoil what Nico can do with that ability because it comes up multiple times in the actual story as well. So check that out if you want to know. But presumably what it lets you do is essentially maybe you exile a creature until the end of turn and shards you control become copies of it. It could also be permanently exiled, who knows? But blue, I mean, maybe if Nico is white blue, right? Because blue tends to not have the ability to permanently remove creatures. It might even be something like tap target creature, put a stun counter on it, your shards become copies of it until end of turn. There is a number of different options when dealing with this, right? Next ability is of creatures you control that don't have the same name as this creature. So, I don't know. I mean, is it counting up the number of creatures and giving them bonuses, or does it have the same name? Like, I don't really actually have any great ideas for this one. Let's move on to the next one. It's got examples of prime numbers. So it just says, it's reminder text. So it's in brackets. It says 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, and 31 are prime numbers. So the fact that it stops at 31 and doesn't go further makes me feel like it might have something to do with having 40 life or something. This 31 makes me think they're leading up to the 40 life for Commander. It's probably like when your life total is a prime number, you get this benefit or your opponent gets some kind of negative. That's my guess. Then we've got creature types from the set. So there is a human doctor, a core survivor, a goat for the goat tickler, a shark. That's an interesting concept. There's some location in Duskmourn that has a shark in it. Is it a lake? Is it an ocean? Is there some kind of merc shark that lives in a swimming pool? Who knows? You got creature eye, which is kind of beholderish feeling. A fish insect? That's interesting. Monkey toy, we all know that's going to be the symbol clapping little goof bag, right? Like, that feels pretty obvious to me. Then you've got Human Clown Berserker. These are going to be the Rippers. They get mentioned in the story as well. And they do have a Rakdos slash almost kind of Juggalo vibe to them too. They're basically maddened warrior berserkers who have been driven crazy by Duskmourn, and they either seek to destroy you or turn you into one of them through inducing madness, right? Then we've got Elder Demon. That's got to be the actual, well, I guess it doesn't have to be. It's likely to be Valgavoth, right? Who is the actual demon spirit that inhabits all of Duskmourn, that just started out as a regular house and grew to encompass the entire world. Because, I mean, Elder, they're super old. They've been around since the beginning, right? And they're definitely a demon. Then we've got Rat Ninja Wizard. That's Nashi. There's no question about that. It's literally a legendary creature. And then they finish it off with some of the names of cards in the set. Acrobatic Cheerleader. Lollipop Chainsaw, anybody? That gives me that vibe. Don't Make a Sound. I mean, that works. I will go on the record saying that I don't like the names of spells just being sentences. Like, you see 2 goblins from Dungeons and Dragons, but that's where we're at right now. So putting that aside, Don't Make a Sound is a proper name for a horror set, right? We've got Exercise, not as in like, lift those weights, get your, what was that? What was that Suzanne Summers leg master? Thigh master, that's what it was. Go get your thigh master up in Duskmourn. Exercise as in exercising a poltergeist, right? Then you've got Friendly Ghost. Oh no. I don't know how I missed this one the first time around. My brain just must have skipped over it when I read through all this before. So I guess we're getting a Casper-esque style Friendly Ghost. There are only a few things that are actually helpful in the world of Duskmourn. You have glimmers, you have these beasts that kind of want to be people's pets, right? So that's in there as well. And this Friendly Ghost concept is interesting because there are things called glitch ghosts in Duskmourn. And essentially, they are beings that died outside of Duskmourn and have somehow gotten into the house. As the house expanded, there's like fewer and fewer amount of space around the house itself as it butts up against the blind eternities. But some ghosts are out there right on the outskirts in the thinnest layer between the house and the blind eternities. And they can kind of force themselves through tiny little cracks in the home in terms of coming in through mirrors and stuff like that. So every ghost that I've heard of so far has not been friendly in the least, quite the opposite. So I don't know if this is going to be I'm guessing it's going to be some legendary ghost that came in from the outside and wants to leave, or maybe just wants to actually like undo what's going on with Duskmourn. It's Casper, it's goofy, right? Then we've got Jump Scare, which is a really sad part of modern horror, where it feels like trying to scare you, there's a goat slapping against the wall, and it's like, okay. Jump scares don't get me. I don't consider being startled by an abrupt noise. If you keep your movie all quiet and then go boogity boogity, like that's not scary to me. So jump scare obviously is going to be a black destruction spell, I'm guessing. I assume it's going to destroy a creature. It'd be pretty funny if it's just like -1, -0 or some goofy little startle effect, right? Then we've got Let's Play a Game. I presume that's tying into the Saw series, right? Now, I'm not a big horror aficionado. I tend to not watch most horror because, like I said, they're just full of jump scares and they don't scare me. But I'm pretty sure that's the concept from Saw. And at the end of the day, Duskmourn is playing games with a bunch of people. But also, this could just be some kind of denizen inside the house who's like, let's play a game. I don't know. Then the next one on the list is Meat Hook Massacre 2. Meat Hook Massacre, the first one, was so OP and so busted that they had to ban it. It's like, yo, I'm going to punish you every time you lose a creature. I'm going to gain life whenever I have a creature go to the graveyard. Oh, by the way, as well, I can just give everybody -X, -X. And who would have thought that board wipe that is that incredibly powerful would make it into literally every black deck and completely warp the standard format. And here we are with Meathook Massacre 2. So you can look at it from one hand and go, well, they learned their lesson from the first Meathook Massacre. There's no way they wouldn't take lessons from the past and use them going forwards. Well, I'll just point to the last video where we talked about Nadu being banned because they didn't even bother to test the newest iteration of it. We've reached the point where Wizards has abdicated a lot of responsibility for actually making sure things are balanced, and they just want the cards to be juicy and go, put this in your commander deck, get this. So Meathook Massacre 2 has to compete with Meathook Massacre 1, right? If it's not better, why would you use it ultimately? So this one makes me really leery. This is one to watch out for. We'll see if they actually toe the line, but I mean Meathook Massacre is a great name for a horror set, let's be real. And the first one had epic flavor. Like from a flavor standpoint, it was incredible. The hands hanging from hooks and everything, beautiful. But from a power perspective, way too crazy. And that was a few years ago, before now where we're living in ultra power creep town, right? Then we've got Orphans of the Wheat, which sounds like the worst cheesy knockoff of Children of the Corn I've ever heard. Orphans of the Cream of Wheat. You gotta eat a balanced breakfast or we'll spoon your eyes out. You know, like... Then we've got Split Up. I mean, that's a classic thing that happens in horror movies where you go, what are you idiots doing? Why do people see somebody get ganked and then instead of running go, I should go investigate? You just saw him get a hook through the head. Why are you going? What are you doing? Right? Like that is so much of what horror is. So Split Up works. And then you've got the Unsettling Twins. And that to me is probably a reference to The Shining, right? Where you got the little girls come play with us kind of thing. There are going to be a lot of references to pre-existing horrors. So for me, again, the biggest things to watch out for are the Meathook Massacre and that crazy 3-mana white board wipe. Those are the ones that I feel like have the most potential to be broken problems. But that sums up all of what we've got to talk about when it comes to the teasers. So I'll just say again, I've put out 5 installments of the Duskmourn story over on the Fantasy Geographic channel. So if you want to be up to date on the flavor and actually maybe have some more hints about what some of these cards might do, then go over and check those out. It turns out this time around, unlike the Bloomborough story, which was just 5 installments, we're going to be getting more installments overall because we're at 0.5 and the story ain't over yet, right? So thanks for coming by. Big shout out to my patrons for supporting my channel. You guys rule. And I will see you all in the next video or the live stream I'm doing tonight over on my live stream channel. Have a good one.